The chamber stank of ozone and fear. Jack Monroe's wrists burned where the energy restraints bit into his skin, suspending him 3 feet above the obsidian floor. The temperature had been dropping steadily for the past hour, his breath now visible in short bursts. Somewhere behind the walls, something massive moved with a rhythmic thud that rattled his bones. Queen Vel'kara emerged from the shadows like a nightmare given form. 9 feet of chitinous armor, 4 arms ending in blade-like appendages, and a crown of bioluminescent spines that pulsed with violent reds and purples. Her mandibles clicked in what her species considered a smile. Rows of jagged teeth glistened in the dim light. Human. Her voice resonated through translation implants embedded in his skull, each word deliberately slow. You will tell me the defense codes for your colony stations. You will reveal the locations of your military fleets. You will betray your species completely. She leaned closer, her breath hot and acidic. Or you will experience pain beyond your comprehension. I will peel your flesh from your bones. I will make you watch as I devour your entrails. I will ensure your last moments are filled with such agony that you beg for death, and I will deny you even that mercy. Jack stared at her for 3 full seconds. Then he laughed. It started as a chuckle, grew into a full belly laugh that echoed off the chamber walls. He laughed so hard, tears streamed down his face, and the restraints swayed with his shaking shoulders. Vel'kara's spines flared bright crimson. You dare mock me? I'm sorry, Jack wheezed, trying to catch his breath. I'm sorry. It's just... Oh man, you remind me so much of my ex-wife. Laura would say almost the exact same stuff during our arguments, except she was way scarier because she had a good lawyer. The Queen's 4 eyes narrowed to slits. Your mate threatened to consume your organs. Worse, she threatened to take the house, the kids, the dog, my retirement fund, and half my future earnings for the next 15 years. And unlike you, she actually did it. Jack's laughter subsided into a grin. Look, your whole torture threat thing, it's adorable, really. But after 2 years of divorce proceedings in California family court, this is honestly kind of relaxing. Vel'kara's mandibles spread wide in genuine confusion. Never in 3,000 years of conquest had a species responded this way. Fear was universal. Pain was absolute. Yet this soft pink creature dangled before her, smiling like he was at a social gathering. You do not fear death, she hissed. Oh, I feared death, Jack said. Right up until the day Laura's attorney told me I'd be paying 70% of my income in alimony and child support, while she got the house I spent 10 years paying for and moved her new boyfriend into my bedroom. That day I learned there are way worse things than dying. The Queen gestured with one-bladed arm. The temperature plummeted another 20 degrees. Frost formed on Jack's eyebrows. Pain will loosen your tongue. You know what's painful? Explaining to your 8-year-old daughter why Daddy can't afford to take her to her favorite restaurant anymore because Mommy's attorney argued that my military hazard pay should count as regular income. You know what torture is? Watching your son call another man dad through a supervised visitation window because the court believed your ex's fabricated domestic violence claims. Vel'kara stepped back, her bioluminescent spines flickering uncertainty. She activated her wrist console, pulling up Jack's personnel file. The data streams painted a picture that defied her understanding of psychological warfare. Lieutenant Commander Jack Monroe, decorated officer, 15 years of service, deployed to 4 conflict zones, 0 disciplinary issues until 3 years ago when his file exploded with civilian legal problems, divorce proceedings lasting 23 months, custody battle involving 16 court appearances, financial assets reduced by 87%, psychological evaluations noting increased stress resilience and emotional detachment, current living situation, 800 square foot apartment, monthly income after obligations, barely sufficient for basic necessities. Your own civilization did this to you? Vel'kara asked, genuinely perplexed. Oh yeah, Jack said cheerfully. See, that's the thing about humans. We don't need aliens to break us. We're really good at doing it to ourselves. You've got your torture chambers and your scary monster routine. We've got divorce attorneys, the IRS, health insurance companies, and homeowner associations. Trust me, your species doesn't even crack the top 10 on my personal nightmare list. The Queen summoned her chief interrogator, a hulking creature designed specifically for extracting information through suffering. It entered the chamber carrying implements that had broken the will of 1,000 species. Jack glanced at the torture devices with the enthusiasm of someone reviewing a restaurant menu they'd seen too many times. Let me guess, you're gonna start with the psychological stuff, right? Show me images of my loved ones suffering? Hate to break it to you, but my kids haven't returned my calls in 18 months. My parents think I'm a failure because I couldn't keep my marriage together, and my best friend stopped talking to me when I couldn't afford to go to his destination wedding, so that's not gonna land. The interrogator looked to Vel'kara, who gestured impatiently. Proceed. They started with neural pain amplifiers. Jack grimaced but kept talking. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe a 6 out of 10. You ever have a kidney stone while your insurance claim is being disputed? Because let me tell you about the 3 months I spent in medical debt hell while passing calcium deposits the size of gravel. They escalated to sensory deprivation. Jack emerged 6 hours later commenting that it was the most peace and quiet he'd had since Laura started calling him at 3 in the morning to scream about missed alimony payments. They tried hallucinogenic compounds that showed victims their worst fears. Jack described his visions as basically a regular Tuesday and asked if they had anything that would make him forget his court-ordered anger management classes. By hour 12, the interrogator reported complete failure. Every method that had proven universally effective across hundreds of species bounced off Jack like rain off plasteel. The human had somehow been pre-broken by his own society to a degree that exceeded their capabilities. Vel'kara dismissed the interrogator and studied Jack with new eyes, not as prey, as a puzzle. Explain, she commanded. What creates this resistance? Jack shifted in his restraints, almost comfortable now. You really want to know? Humans are survivors. Not because we're the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We survive because life on Earth is basically a continuous stress test from birth to death. You're born, and immediately you're behind on a schedule. Childhood, that's just preparing for education. That's preparing for employment. That's 40 years of grinding yourself down to afford a life you're too tired to enjoy. Then you find someone, fall in love, maybe have kids. You think you've made it. His voice grew quieter, harder. Then one day she tells you she's not happy. Hasn't been happy for years. Wants a divorce. And suddenly the legal system that's supposed to be fair decides that because you are the primary earner, you owe her the lifestyle she became accustomed to. Doesn't matter that she cheated. Doesn't matter that you worked double shifts to provide. The court says you're an ATM in a human suit, and you better keep paying or you'll lose what little access you have to your own children. Vel'kara's spines had faded to a dull blue, the color her species displayed during deep contemplation. Your government enforces this suffering? Oh, that's just the start. We've got systems designed to extract maximum stress from minimum input. Medical bankruptcy. Student loans that follow you to the grave. Credit scores that determine your worth as a human being. Tax codes so complex that even experts can't agree on them. And if you complain too loud, society calls you weak. Man up, they say. Provide for your family. Don't show emotion. Just shut up and take it. Jack met her alien eyes with a gaze that had long ago calcified past fear. So yeah, Queen Vel'kara, you're terrifying. I'm sure you've made 1,000,000 creatures beg for mercy, but you're offering me physical pain with a defined endpoint. You're offering me death as an escape route. After what I've been through, that's a vacation. The Queen turned away, accessing her command network. She pulled up reports from other interrogation cells. Dozens of human prisoners, all showing similar resistance. She read their files with growing alarm. Prisoner 2471. Former engineer. Lost everything in a fraudulent business partnership. Legal system provided no recourse. Laughed at threat displays. Prisoner 3309. Teacher. Spent life savings caring for sick parent. Insurance denied coverage. Medical debt destroyed credit. Showed zero stress response to torture. Prisoner 4, 127, military enlisted, served 20 years. Government benefits cut due to administrative error, now homeless. Asked if interrogation chamber had better heating than his shelter. Prisoner 558-, single mother, working 3 jobs. Lost custody because work schedule meant less quality time than unemployed father. Requested to stay in cell because it was quieter than her life outside. The pattern was absolute. Every human showed the same psychological profile. They had all been systematically broken by their own civilization's mundane cruelties to a point where alien threats seemed trivial by comparison. Vel'kara pulled up battlefield reports next. Her military commanders had been transmitting increasingly frantic updates. Human soldiers fought with a reckless efficiency that defied survival instinct. They charged positions that should have terrified them. They laughed during bombardments. They made jokes while wounded. Combat stress seemed to reduce their anxiety rather than increase it. One intercepted human communication read, "Finally, an enemy that actually shoots at you instead of sending passive-aggressive emails." Another, "Boss monsters in real life are way easier than boss monsters at the DMV." The reports painted a picture of a species that had accidentally conditioned itself for warfare through the simple act of civilian existence. Humans didn't become soldiers to face danger. They became soldiers to escape from something worse. Vel'kara returned to Jack, who hung in his restraints looking almost peaceful. "Your species is psychologically damaged. We prefer resilient," Jack corrected. "But yeah, pretty much. Thing is, it makes us really dangerous. You can't break what's already broken. You can't threaten people who've already lost everything. And you definitely can't scare someone who's faced down a family court judge at 8 in the morning on 3 hours of sleep after their ex violated the custody agreement for the 5th time. This is not natural," Vel'kara said. "A species should not evolve to torture itself." "Didn't evolve," Jack said. "We built it." Humans are really good at creating systems that seem logical individually but combine into a nightmare collectively. Nobody sets out to create a soul-crushing bureaucracy. It just happens when you get enough rules and enough people enforcing them, and enough lawyers finding loopholes, and enough politicians protecting special interests. Before you know it, you've got a civilization that's more effective at breaking its own people than any outside force could be, the Queen's Consul chimed. Another battle report. Her fleets were retreating from the Proxima sector. Human reinforcements had arrived, and her commanders reported that the enemy fought with an unsettling combination of professional competence and absolute disregard for their own psychological welfare. One human pilot had rammed his damaged fighter into a Xal'thari carrier while broadcasting what analysts determined was divorce celebration music. Vel'kara made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours ago. She deactivated Jack's restraints. He dropped to the floor, stumbled, caught himself. "You're releasing me?" He rubbed his wrists, surprised. "I am declaring humanity psychologically incompatible as an adversary species," Vel'kara said formally. "My empire has conquered 1,200 worlds across 3 galaxies. We have perfected the art of breaking the will of our enemies. But your species has already been broken by forces we cannot comprehend or replicate. There is no victory in defeating an enemy that welcomes destruction as relief from existence." Jack laughed again, but this time there was genuine warmth in it. "You know what? You're the first being in 3 years who's actually listened to me. Laura never did. The court didn't. My own command structure just told me to compartmentalize and drive on. But you actually heard what I was saying. I heard that your species has weaponized suffering and turned it inward," Vel'kara said. "I heard that you have created hells more effective than anything my torture chambers could produce. And I heard that you consider warfare a respite from normalcy." Her spines flickered with something that might have been respect. "These things make you unconquerable. Not through strength, but through having already surrendered to worse masters than I could ever be." She opened the chamber doors. "All human prisoners will be returned to their vessels. Xal'thari forces will withdraw from your territories. I will recommend to the Imperial Council that humanity be classified as a prohibited contact species, not because you are dangerous in the traditional sense, but because you are evolutionarily poisoned. Contact with your kind might teach other species that they too can be broken by their own systems." Jack walked toward the exit, then paused. "For what it's worth, Your Majesty, I hope your empire treats your people better than ours does. Because if you don't, if you let the bureaucracy and the lawyers and the systems grind your citizens down like we do, you'll end up with soldiers just like us, and that's not something you want to face across a battlefield." Vel'kara watched him leave, this broken creature from a broken world, and felt something she had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty about the natural order. If humanity could do this to itself accidentally, what horrors might a truly malevolent civilization create intentionally? She transmitted orders across her fleet: full withdrawal, maximum speed, no engagement with human forces. The Xal'thari Empire had faced species that were stronger, faster, more numerous, but humanity was the first species they had encountered that was more dangerous to itself than any external threat could be, and that self-inflicted damage had somehow forged them into something that could not be conquered through conventional means. Jack boarded the human transport vessel 12 hours later. The other released prisoners were already there, comparing notes about their interrogations with the casual competence of people discussing a minor inconvenience. Someone had started a poker game. Another group was complaining about the quality of alien prison food compared to military rations, though they noted that at least the aliens didn't require 17 forms in triplicate to get a meal. Commander Lisa Chen met Jack at the airlock. "Heard you made quite an impression on the Queen. What did you do?" "Told her about my divorce," Jack said with a shrug. "Apparently that's scarier than their entire torture arsenal." "Well, it worked. They're retreating across all fronts. High Command is calling it a strategic miracle." She handed him a message tablet. "This came through on priority channel. Personal communication." Jack's smile faded as he read the sender. Laura Monroe, attorney correspondence. The subject line read, "Modification of support agreement. Immediate action required." He read the first paragraph. Laura's attorney was petitioning for increased alimony based on Jack's recent hazard pay from the alien conflict zone. They argued that his demonstrated ability to earn in dangerous situations should be factored into his financial obligations. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks from his return. Lisa watched his expression change. "Bad news? My ex-wife found out I got hazard pay for being captured and tortured by aliens," Jack said quietly. "She wants a bigger cut." "You're kidding." "I really wish I was." Jack handed back the tablet and headed toward the crew quarters. He stopped at the corridor junction, turned back. "Lisa, do me a favor. Find out where our most dangerous frontline position is, whatever operation has the worst survival odds, and put me in for transfer. Jack, you just got out of an alien torture chamber. Take some leave. Decompress." The torture chamber was the decompression, Jack said. "I'd rather face the Xal'thari again and go back to family court. At least the aliens are honest about wanting to destroy me." He walked away, leaving Lisa standing in the corridor trying to process the logical impossibility of what she'd just heard. But as she thought about her own student loan debt, her mother's medical bills, and the apartment she could barely afford despite her military salary, she found herself understanding completely. Somewhere across the galaxy, Queen Vel'kara filed her final report on humanity. Recommended classification: severe threat level, but not for traditional military reasons. Threat assessment noted that humanity had created a civilization that functioned as a continuous psychological warfare engine against its own population, producing individuals who had been pre-hardened to suffering to a degree that external threats registered as relief rather than stress. The report concluded with a warning that would echo through the Imperial archives for generations. Do not engage humanity in protracted conflict. They do not fear destruction because they already live in it. They do not dread suffering because it is their baseline existence. They cannot be broken because they are maintained in a permanent state of breaking by their own systems. Any species that could accidentally create such conditions and survive them is too dangerous to oppose and too damaged to save. Avoid at all costs. Back on Earth, Jack sat in a small apartment that cost too much and contained too little. The walls were bare except for a photo of 2 kids who didn't call anymore. His bank account showed another alimony payment processing. His phone displayed 17 unread messages from Laura's attorney. Outside his window, humanity continued its daily grind. Millions of people navigating impossible systems, crushing debt, broken relationships, and bureaucratic nightmares, each one thinking they were alone in their struggle. Each one being slowly compressed into something harder and colder and more resilient than any intentional military training could produce. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, alien civilizations were beginning to learn what humanity had always known. It's what you learn to do to yourself, one mundane day at a time, until the extraordinary horrors of the universe seem almost welcoming by comparison. Jack closed his eyes and smiled. In 2 weeks, he'd be back in court. In 2 months, if his transfer request was approved, he'd be back in combat. He knew which one scared him more. And that knowledge, that fundamental inversion of natural survival instinct, was exactly what made humanity unconquerable. The aliens had finally learned to dread the humans, but the humans had learned to dread something far worse: coming home.